What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, the official Cliffy J, and I'm back with another video. And today, I'm gonna be giving you guys another Survivor ranking, and this one gonna be a little different. We going back to the handy dandy tier list, and I'm gonna be talking about all of the final threes in Survivor US history, and I'm going to rank them all based on their gameplay. I'm looking at their dominance, their social game, their strategic game, and their physical ability. The worst final three in Survivor history to me is the final three of Survivor Edge of Extinction: Julie, Chris, and Gavin. And Gavin was a strong player, and I do think he probably played the strongest game of this entire tier, arguably. But Chris was only good physically. And at the end of the day, Julie was mainly a non factor in terms of gameplay. So I feel like it's clear that this is the worst final three in Survivor history. And at number 32, I have the finalist of Survivor Gabon, Sugar, Bob, and Susie. And when we're looking at this from perspective of just gameplay, this was the one that I thought was going to be the worst. But I had to take into account that Chris was voted out. And I think that's kind of what was the determining factor, because Julie and Susie is a wash. Sugar and Gavin is kind of a wash. And then Bob and Chris is where it really becomes a debate. And I would have to lean towards Bob because Chris was voted out and Chris didn't do anything in terms of gameplay that wasn't hand fed to him as a move to make. And I ain't saying that Bob didn't have similar parts of his game, but he didn't get voted out. So I'm gonna just lean towards him because he also won more challenges. So yeah, I will lean towards Bob. And at number 31, I have the final three of Survivor 43: Gabler, Cassidy, and Owen. And this just mainly comes from the fact that I don't think either of them played necessarily a great game, necessarily a really good game. They were all closer to the average, you know what I'm saying? And Owen below average. And a big thing for me is that Cassidy was a little bit delusional about her game. And delusion is one of the biggest hinders to gameplay, in my opinion. I feel like if you are not fully knowing what you're doing and how the impact that it really has, then I don't know how highly I could rank you in terms of gameplay. You know what I mean? Because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. So yeah. Owen, he just like he was on the wrong season, bro. Because pre-merge he was aight, but as soon as he got the merge, he was cooked. And I think Gabler's a little underrated. That's probably why they are even at this spot. But yeah, at number 30, we have a very similar final three, the one that was right before Survivor 42. We got Marianne, Romeo, and Mike. And Romeo is pretty bad, basically even with Owen. Mike and Marianne are close to a Gabler and Cassidy. I would probably lean towards Mike and Marianne if I'm talking about two. So that's why I would have them at 30. And at number 29, we have another weaker final three, one that is down here for a couple of reasons. We have the final three of Survivor Philippines: Lisa, Scoopin, and Denise. And this just comes from the fact that I think Lisa was probably the best of the three, but she was inconsistent. One week she was locked in, next week she wasn't, emotions taking over, stuff like that. Her thoughts on perception, all that type of stuff. Scoopin, another delusional player. Delusion gets you. You thought you could beat Malcolm. And then Denise is pretty cool, but she's overrated to me. I can't really think of anything she really did in terms of gameplay. I can't really think of any crazy social plays or her having an exceptionally great social game. I just remember her being with Malcolm and kind of surviving for the most part. Not saying that isn't impressive, but we're ranking her against other people that all survived the final three mostly. And at number 28, I have the final three of Survivor Millennials versus Gen X: Adam, Hannah, and Ken. And I think that Adam had an inconsistent game similar to Lisa, though he was locked in the whole time. It was more just the moves he was trying to pull off is what made him inconsistent. Hannah, I think played the best of the final three, but it is a couple of holes that you could easily poke in her game, both socially and strategically. And she wasn't standing out physically either. And then Ken just standing out physically. Yeah, he was good around camp, but he wasn't really anything socially and he wasn't really anything strategically, but he was a challenge beast. And at number 27, I have the final three of Survivor 44, Yam Yam, Carolyn, and Heidi. Yam Yam is one of the best social players of the new era. And I think the game that he played truly exudes that. Because even when he was a big threat, he was able to traverse the game not without being like the biggest like person targeted. He could be someone that is targeted and is a threat on the board. He wasn't someone that was heavily targeted while being such a big threat on the board. And I think that is very impressive. Then we have Carolyn, who is one of the most overrated runners up in Survivor history. I'm gonna be real. People that think she be supposed to be Yam Yam, I think you're tripping. If you're just asking me from a standpoint of gameplay versus gameplay, I don't think it's necessarily that close. Pre-merge, it was close, but post-merge, it's literally not even in the same stratosphere. So yeah. And at number 26, I have the final three of Survivor HHH, Ben, Chrissy, and Ryan. And this is one where, as players, I genuinely believe they're all three much better players from what we saw, even than their ranking on this list. It's just the fact that they were in and out of the majority, especially Chrissy. Ben became the biggest threat on the board, mostly because of some sloppy gameplay, but also because he was such a big player in the game. And Ryan probably played the most consistent game of the three, but just the fact of the matter that he wasn't always in power, he wasn't always in the know. And I'm not saying that you need to always be in the know and always be in power to be considered a great game, but I do think that when we're looking at him in comparison to the other finalists on this list, it's not that he's a step behind, but the level that he's at, it isn't enough to raise Ben and Chrissy, who were extremely inconsistent gameplay wise, up at the top level. And that's really what it comes down to. I think this is we're getting into decent final twos. I mean, final threes. This is the low tier, but we're getting some decent final threes. I will say that. And at number 25, I have the final three of Survivor Worlds Apart. And I kind of think this might be a little bit biased with the fact that I have them over HHH. But I do think that if we're looking at Mike versus Ben, Mike, I think, played a better game. If we're looking at Carolyn versus Chrissy, I think Carolyn probably played around the same level of a game, maybe better. And then if we're looking at Will versus Ryan, Will's cooking. I'm not gonna lie. Will is cooking. Will ain't cooking Ryan, but that's simply because the activity and the agency that Ryan had. Like Ryan was a player that could have been like, all right, let's make this move. And there was some moves that he was able to make, and it was sometimes he had a lot of influence. Will's kind of came from being in positions that he made the influence rather than literally being a big player, someone that people actually want to, talk strategy back and forth with and things like that. But Will, I think it is Will. It's Will and Mike that is carrying them to be this high. And I do think that Will was probably underrated because he's unlikable. And at number 25, I have the final three of Survivor 47, the most recent final three: Sam, Rachel, and Sue. And if we were going just based off of my favorite final threes, my favorite players in the final three, might be recency bias, but this would probably be top five for me. I was a big Sam fan from the beginning of the season, and nothing throughout the season deterred me. I was a fan of him the entire way through, though I didn't think he deserved to win over Rachel. Sue had a lot of control early in the game, but it also came from being closely aligned with more strategic players in Caroline and Gabe. So I don't necessarily think that any of these three are the most impressive gameplay, but I think as players, these three are also higher than I'm going to put them on this ranking. And at number 24, I have the final three of Survivor Redemption Island. And this is one that I'm pretty confident that I was going to have low on the list. And it's simply because though Boston Rob played a great game, it's a little watered down, when you add the context. And Natalie and Philip are two of the worst finalists in Survivor history, especially to not be voted out. They are probably the two worst finalists. Like, they did nothing except for just ride Boston Rob. And y'all want me to say coattail, but I'll say the other one. He's riding on. No, okay. But yeah, at number 23, I have, it's going to be surprising, guys, Survivor Winners at War. Natalie, Michelle, and Tony. Tony was goated in this game. Keep it real. He was goated. He really cooked everybody, But at the end of the day, when you add the context, not just of it being a winter season, because that makes it more impressive, when you add the pregame context, when you add the context that certain players just didn't have the same juice on this season as they did in their first season, or the same juice as they maybe would have had if it wasn't a Winners at War season. Like, Winners at War makes the cast more prestigious, but it also gives them less reason to give a fuck, because it's like, I'm going against other winners, so if I lose, oh well. And most of us winners have played 2 and 3 times. Like, I don't even really want to be here for real like that. I'm done playing Survivor. Survivor's 39 days at the time. I do love Natalie, but her getting voted out first and only playing a couple weeks of the game really does matter to me, and it really does lower her as a player and as a winner. And that's what it comes down to. And then Michelle has just never really been that good to me. I mean, she's a really good social player in terms of likability, and she is very good at challenges. But I genuinely feel like her strategic game is so, like, non-factorish, unrateable, that it almost drags her down as a player. Because strategically, what is she? What is she strategically? But you're on to the next one. At number 22, I have the final 3 of Survivor Blood vs. Water: Tyson, Jervis, and Monica. And this is similar to the Boston Rob of it all, where I don't really think Jervis and Monica played that impressive of games. I do think they played better, whereas I think Tyson played worse than Boston Rob, even when I put the context in. So that's why I have them just a little bit higher, but not too much higher, not crazy. At number 21, Survivor Fiji. And this is mostly because of Earl. Like, Earl is an all-time great winner. I think that his win is definitely better than Tyson's, Jeremy's, and Rob's. If you're asking me, we're taking everything into account. People will say, oh, the builders versus the explorers. So, well, he had a built-in alliance. Shut up. Shut up. Bro made that alliance on day 1 of the game. Bro didn't make that alliance pregame. Bro made that alliance day 1 of the game, on top of the fact that I'm not going to sit here and act like a day 1 alliance is supposed to always be loyal to each other. People cut each other all the time just because we got cool on day 1. We wasn't even the same tribe. They weren't even the same tribe. That's my thing. We split, but they weren't even on the same tribe. So to say he's so massively benefited from that, I think it's a little bit, it's crazy to me. I think that his social game was more impactful too, rather than the fact that he had the ability to make to split the game like that. I think it was also his social game, people trusting him and all that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And it was more of that rather than a Boston Rob who had everybody on the cast just ready to gawk him. Like, nah, bro, I'm done. Cooked. And let's move on to the next tier. That was the low tier. Now let's move on to the mid tier. At number 20, we have the final 3 of Survivor 41. This is one that I feel very similarly to this one as I do to a Mike Gabler. I mean, like a Gabler, Cassidy, Owen, where all 3 players are solid. But at the end of the day, they're like a level above those other players. Like, I ain't gonna lie. First time I watched it, I thought Deshaun was supposed to get that dub. I thought he played a better game than Erica the first time I watched it. But, knowing all that, like, context matters. When you know all the context, I do think Erica played a very impressive game and the better game of the 3, where Xander was decent. He was kind of well-rounded. He has a Cassidy issue where a little bit delusional. You thought certain stuff that was happening was more because of you than it was. And that's a problem. But yeah. At number 19, which is kind of convenient. That's crazy, guys. At number 19, we have Survivor Samoa. I really hope I'm not off with these numbers, because that's kind of crazy. I kind of think I should end the video here at Survivor Samoa at number 19. Should I end it here at number 19? And I'll give you guys part 2 later this week. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. At number 19, we have Survivor Samoa. And a big thing for me about Survivor Samoa that makes them so high on this list is the fact that Russell played the game very impressively on this season. This was the season where Russell's social game wasn't as bad as it was on Heroes vs. Villains. And his strategic game, I would argue, was a little bit more sharp. I think that on Heroes vs. Villains, he was just making every move. He was just making every move because some of the moves he made weren't necessarily the best move to make, but it ends up being more impressive because he was able to pull it off. On Samoa, I feel like he was on his A game. I feel like he was very tactical, and I feel like the main reason he lost wasn't just because he didn't have a great social game, but it was mostly because he played the game in a way where he was dominating everybody. And he was the one, ooh, flip the vote. Oh, ooh, you know what I'm saying? He was a flashy guy. Versus Natalie was the social player who I have grown to have a lot of respect for Natalie's game. I genuinely believe that if it's not for Jason and Natalie and Mick and all them, it's not just Russell. I genuinely believe that it was not just Russell that got them to the final three, got them to the point they were in the game. It was all of them, and it was especially Russell and Natalie's social game and her ability to make players comfortable and believe that they could work with her even if it's just for one vote, and then we're gonna get y'all next. Like, people really believe that, not just because of Russell. Because if it was just Russell, let's be real, his car salesman, not car salesman, but you know what I'm saying, he got that mystique to where you can't trust it. like a gremlin, bro. No, you can't trust that leprechaun. I'm good. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here. There you go. That is 33 through 18 in my Survivor Final 3 rankings. I will be dropping part 2 tomorrow, so do not worry. But I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm gonna cut it off here. Y'all make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next Survivor ranking.